Materials research is making better materials. Materials that are smaller, stronger, faster, smarter, and more. To advance our understanding of the world around us and improve lives everywhere. With almost 14,000 members, the Materials Research Society is the organization that brings them all together. From students to Nobel laureates, to collaborate, share research, and change the world. Now in Boston, Massachusetts, it's time for the 2019 MRS Fall Meeting and Exhibit. And we're MRS TV. Welcome back to Boston and the fantastic Heinz Convention Center as materials researchers from all over the world gather together to share the most up-to-date, cutting-edge work in the field. We're as excited as ever to be here for the 2019 MRS Fall Meeting and Exhibit. We're MRS TV, and you'll find us on TVs throughout the Heinz, online, and of course, in a selection of hotels around the Back Bay. Today, we're getting the meeting underway as we sit down with the Fall Meeting co-chairs and catch up with the 2019 MRS president. Let's see what's in store.
I think people hear national laboratories and they think all of that is closed off to the external community, but these user facilities were built specifically to further research in the country.
One of the things that I've learned this year is that it pays to listen to people. So it's okay to have a diverse society, but if you're not listening to those perspectives, it's not doing anybody any good.
New science is always good to hear about and talk about. That's what MRS is all about, I think, every year.
Joining us now, we have two guests, co-chairs from the 2019 MRS Fall Meeting. This is Conal Murray and also Iris Visoly-Fisher. Great to see you both.
It's great to be here.
Now, this week is the culmination of several years' worth of efforts on your parts. What are some of the highlights that you're looking forward to most at the 2019 Fall Meeting? And Iris, we'll start with you.
I'm really looking forward to the award winners talks. There's a very special overarching topics with the Fred Kavli lectureship and with the award lightning talks, which should be interesting to everyone. And they all run through tomorrow and Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And I think they will be very exciting.
No doubt. Conal, I'm sure you would echo that.
Absolutely. It's great to be here and to see the hard work of a lot of individuals who have helped to put together this meeting. I'm looking forward to a fantastic plenary speaker, Professor Sharon Glotzer from University of Michigan, who will be talking about designing materials from the atomistic level on up. Some of the other aspects in the exhibit hall this year, we'll have User Facility Row, where representatives from a number of different user facilities at national laboratories as well as universities will be there to talk about the offerings, to talk about how you can access those offerings, and what sort of possible career paths there might be at these places. And of course, PowerPoint karaoke.
Of course.
Thursday. It's where, for those who may not know, individuals have to create a slide with data and analysis, and someone completely different with no foreknowledge has to look at it for 3 minutes and hopefully come up with a cogent presentation on that information.
And that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it will be, and it really shows us how better to communicate science.
Right. You got to be quick on your feet to do that.
That's right.
Ideally, anyway. Conal, we were talking about this earlier. MRS meetings, they're designed to feature the very latest developments in materials research. That's reflected in the core meeting, the technical symposia. So what are some of the trends or new developments that you're seeing reflected in the programming at this meeting?
That's right. So we have 54 technical symposia. They're broken up into 8 different clusters. Over 6,000 presentations throughout the week.
Wow.
So there's quite a lot of content. And what we tried to do as co-chairs was to combine the traditional symposia like silicon for photovoltaics, high entropy alloys, and others with more novel aspects such as nanofluidics, aggregate adduced emission, even advanced atomic layer deposition and chemical vapor deposition. These were themes that were featured in previous fall meetings, but wouldn't have their own symposium topic.
Now, Iris, are there any talks that you're particularly anxious to see?
On top of these traditional symposia, we have this year 3 very interesting symposia on quantum technicalities, quantum mechanics, and quantum computation, which I'm sure are going to be very highly populated and extremely interesting, as this is really at the forefront of scientific research nowadays.
Now, beyond the technical symposia, the program's filled with broader impact events, from government agency sessions to advocacy and outreach events and professional development workshops. Tell us more about the broader impact events and why they become such a key part of MRS meetings. And Iris, we'll start with you.
Broader impact events range from anything from career development to diversity to anything that you can think of. My own favorite are the Women Workshop and Reception, which takes place this afternoon, which is going to be discussing unconscious bias at the workplace, and the Women's Breakfast on Wednesday morning. For me, for quite a while, these kind of events, these networking events with other material research women, has been a life-changing event. I started attending them as a graduate student, and they pretty much affected me into becoming what I am today.
No kidding.
Yep.
Big impact.
There's a specific women breakfast that I remember, I think it was 2003, but not sure. Professor Mildred Dresselhaus presented the talk.
Right, an icon.
Absolutely. And this was the first time that I realized that whatever I was going through is shared by other graduate students, and one thing led to another, and I ended up co-forming the women student organization in my university, which I hope still exists today.
All from that humble start.
Yep.
Conal, we were talking as well about how important networking is.
Absolutely, and I see the advantages from the broader impact as twofold. You have the immediate benefits that go with things like the career fair, learning how to get your work published, as well as even interacting with the government agencies on how to secure funding for your work. But there are also the very longer lasting aspects, as Iris mentioned, about the breakfast for the material science and engineering women. There's focus on sustainability and plastics and the role that those might play. That allow people that have a common interest related to material science to forge connections that hopefully will last far beyond the fall meeting.
Now, we've only got limited time. I'm going to ask you one question. You get 10 seconds apiece. A lot of work being MRS co-chair. A lot of responsibility. Any advice for future co-chairs?
Absolutely. I would say think big and think broadly on how you can capture all of the new advances that are present and help shape the meeting. The MRS staff has been fantastic in helping you support and realize your vision.
Have fun. That's the most important part.
And we'll end on that note. Great to see you both. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds like it's going to be a great fall meeting, and good luck to the co-chairs for the coming days. Now, MRS TV isn't just confined to the Hinds. A big part of our job is to shine a light on some of the world's most innovative and exciting materials research. We'll bring you new features every day, so let's see what's in store today. First up, it's time to explore the stars as we go to Arizona State University Center for the Materials of the Universe.
The space industry is growing and exciting because of the exciting discoveries in space, in the outer planets, and especially in exoplanets, that we're not alone in the universe. The Center for Materials of the Universe, part of Arizona State University, is a new center that I'm leading. I'm Alexandra Navratsky, Alex for short. The center's mission is to foster research and collaboration, not just at ASU, but among many institutions, to bring together science and engineering to further our understanding of space, our use of space, and technological advances. My research deals with the stability of materials. In a thermodynamic sense, that's technical. In a practical sense, one wants to know whether materials can form, whether they persist, and what they tell us about the environment, the conditions under which they formed.
My name is Arunima Singh, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Physics here at ASU. At the center, I'll be using ab initio simulations to study the possible structures which could exist on exoplanets. These are new conditions. We have extremely hazardous conditions on the exoplanets, extreme temperatures and pressures which can only be probed using computations. But also we can perform control experiments in lab, but they're prohibitively expensive and time-consuming. And the computations allow us to map a very huge complex phase space, studying millions of structures. In the next 10 to 20 years, our hope as a group in the center of the materials of the universe is to map the planetary genome. We want to be able to map out the structure and properties of materials which could exist on these exoplanets and in the universe.
I'm Scott Sayers. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Molecular Sciences. So my research lab is an ultra-fast laser lab, which means we use lasers to study chemical reactions and dynamics. We are developing new spectroscopic tools to push the time limits to shorter and shorter timescales, where we're now able to see electron dynamics in their native timescale. And this gives us access to all sorts of new information for materials. In the future, I believe that we're going to be able to make new materials and coatings out of depositing clusters onto a surface. And so instead of having a surface that has a couple of catalytically active sites, we're going to be able to make this entire material chemically active and be able to retain those properties, those unique properties that we observed from the individual cluster sites.
My name is Dan Shem. I'm a mineralogist and I'm a high pressure experimentalist. So I have a lab that studies materials at high pressure and high temperature conditions of the Earth interior and other planets. So planetary interiors are one of the hardest regions to understand because we cannot get that data directly. I simulate the pressure temperature conditions of the deep interior in the lab. For the next 10 or 20 years, I will enjoy studying a very wide pressure temperature range, very wide compositional range, to be able to understand the planets that we never have thought about before.
My name is Joseph O'Rourke. I am a planetary scientist, and my research focuses on phenomena that originate deep within the interiors of planets. My research is exciting because it focuses on big picture questions about Earth and other planets in our solar system and beyond. Why does Earth have plate tectonics? Why does Earth have a magnetic field? These large-scale planetary processes are essential to understanding why our surface is habitable. So we are entering a new era of planetary exploration. Most of NASA's past spacecraft missions have focused on the most easily observable parts of planets, their surfaces and their atmospheres. But the new generation of NASA missions is focused on collecting data about the interiors of planets. The NASA InSight mission is probing the interior of Mars. The NASA Psyche mission, led by ASU, is going to the remnant core of an ancient protoplanet. And so we are starting to gather new data about the interiors of planets, which makes understanding the properties of materials even more of a pressing need.
I'm Hillary Ellen Hartnett, and I'm Associate Professor in the School of Earth and Space Exploration and the School of Molecular Sciences. I'm a geochemist. I also answer to oceanographer and astrobiologist, but my work is to understand carbon and nitrogen cycling on the Earth, and in particular, I'm interested in how minerals catalyze organic reactions in Earth systems. The collaboration between material scientists, mineral physicists, and geochemists can explore the conditions and the chemical properties that might be present on exoplanets. Nobody thinks that organic chemists will be able to tell us something about pH, or temperature, or redox chemistry for a planet around another star, but I think we're going to be able to do that. The Center for the Materials of the Universe has nothing less than the vision of understanding the universe. We envision that the connections with material scientists and geochemists and even astrophysicists is going to allow us to think about new, creative, interdisciplinary ways to explore planets that we can't go to yet.
So we hope to grow, we hope to thrive.
exciting work there. Now a bit closer to home, let's go to a materials research center that's enabling researchers to make a bigger impact at Missouri University of Science and Technology.
The mission of the Materials Research Center is twofold. The first part of the mission is really to foster interdisciplinary materials research, and that means we involve faculty from across campus in many different departments. And the other part of the mission is that we provide access to analytical equipment that's too expensive or difficult to maintain for individual faculty labs. The Materials Research Center maintains state-of-the-art equipment for characterizing materials, and we really do that to enable the success of the investigators that work in the center. For them to be able to be competitive with their research proposals, either to companies or government agencies, we have to be able to characterize materials in a way that is competitive with other institutions. With faculty from many different departments, you can imagine that we have a lot of different types of activity going on.
Materials in extreme environments behave very differently than our everyday experience. We often see very new and unpredictable phenomenon. And it's in those phenomena in which we are able to discover new behaviors that enable the technologies of tomorrow. We started a project with the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Energy, or ARPA-E, to advance the materials and manufacturing techniques to create ceramic heat exchangers. The Materials Research Center has recently provided seed grant funding to help our research group develop some of the preliminary data that would be necessary to resubmit a proposal that was recently deemed as high risk, and we'll be able to demonstrate some of the preliminary data to eliminate that risk and hopefully resubmit that proposal and get it funded.
The research that we do is chemical processing of materials, especially using electrochemistry, electrodeposition, and spin coating to produce highly ordered metal oxide semiconductors and catalysts. So we're using both electrochemistry, electrodeposition, and spin coating. And both of these are solution processes. So there's no high vacuum, no high temperature. You can control the potential, the pH, you can use additives, and you can get different orientations, different shapes, different compositions just by changing these things. So it gives you a lot of different handles, different levers that you can pull to tailor these materials.
Visoly-Fisher is the name of glass microspheres. They're about 1/5 or 1/3 the diameter of the hair on your head. And they're injected into patients that have inoperable liver cancer. And these beads are made radioactive so that when they go into the liver and get stuck in the tumors, they irradiate and kills those tumors. We use the tumor as a filter. And so now you have, ideally, these glass microspheres in all of the tumors that may be in the liver. One human dose contains about 8 million of these little glass microspheres.
At Missouri S&T we study a lot of materials for health, bioactive materials that can treat cancer and wounds. We study materials for extreme conditions, materials for energy, infrastructure, and so on. So computational science is really plays an increasingly important key in the research. It's sort of an independent area, but at the same time we work together with experimentalists and other researchers in order to not only explain what we observe in materials, but also to predict and design new materials that might help us in the future. Computers help us model the materials and their behavior in a very efficient way. And to expand our efforts, we are very excited to have a new grant from the National Science Foundation. It's about $2 million grant to acquire and build a new cluster that will be called the Foundry. And that computational power will exceed the previous cluster by a significant amount. It's going to be 320 teraflops.
So I study various aspects of the radiation interactions with matter from fundamental radiation interactions of neutrons and ions and solids to developing new materials for nuclear reactors and nuclear systems. Ion beams are a really rapid way, a really cheap and rapid way to mimic some of the radiation effects. We can achieve essentially the equivalent of something like many years of radiation exposure in a reactor within a period of maybe minutes or hours. Another application of ion beams is to actually change and alter material properties. So one of the projects we're working on is trying to manufacture photonic materials using a combination of ion irradiation and then chemical treatments. The Materials Research Center puts together a lot of experts from different areas of materials research, materials science, and other disciplines. And we have an availability of many different techniques at our disposal that we can use to synthesize, characterize, and alter materials. So we have a pretty complete suite of state-of-the-art equipment for characterizing materials.
We have to maintain our equipment and acquire new equipment to remain competitive, but we also have to explore new research areas. And so providing seed grants to early career faculty is one way that we can sustain the research competitiveness of campus. That we provide them the resources to explore their new ideas and their new concepts, and then get funding and build programs around their expertise.
Joining us now, we have two people. We've got Simranjeet Grewal and Heather Brown. You both are part of the organizing committee with the user facility oriented programming.
Right.
So there's a wide variety of user facility oriented programming at this meeting. And before we talk about the events themselves, I want to start with the big question, the definition. What exactly is a user facility, and why is it important for meeting attendees to learn about them?
So a user facility, there's a lot of different types, but the basics are that these are facilities all across the country and international that researchers can come. There's a lot of different capabilities and expertise that researchers can utilize and they can access. There's different modes of access, whether you're doing proprietary work or non-proprietary work. But researchers should know about them because they have equipment, they have expertise that you can use to further your research.
And we were just saying, not a lot of people know about user facilities, right?
Exactly.
So it's just getting the word out.
Getting the word out. That's why we're here.
Very good. Now, Simranjeet, as part of the Student Engagement Subcommittee, you've been involved in planning a wide range of programs for this meeting. Give us a preview of some of the events that will be going on throughout the week.
So this Tuesday, we're having a program called How to Write and Develop a Proposal User Facility, because a lot of graduate students, oftentimes they misstep the process, they don't know how to write it, and they lose out on being able to use some of the amazing facilities that are provided. So we wanted to provide a workshop that not only covers what a user facility was, but how to write one, what are some of the techniques and technologies that are available. So that's what we're going to be planning on Tuesday. That's going to be at the Sheraton at the Fens between 4 and 8 p.m.
I imagine it'll be heavily attended.
I hope so. I believe so.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Heather, you're a program manager at User Facility, specifically the Center for Integrated Nanotechnologies, which is a joint center between Sandia and Los Alamos National Labs. You'll be a panelist on a session about creating an effective user facility proposal. What do you want the attendees at this MRS meeting to know about working with a user facility?
Well, as we discussed, the main thing we're here and we want people to know is that we even exist. We've been around for over a decade, and some people still have not heard of us. And so what we want people to know is that these facilities are national resources. They're here for you. Our facilities are free of charge for those that are doing non-proprietary research. We have expertise capabilities that are world-class, and we want people to know that they should be using us. They should be coming and taking advantage of these great resources that are available to them.
Why do you think people aren't aware, enough people aren't aware?
I'm not really sure. We're just trying
You're
to
gonna fix it.
That's what we're trying to do. We haven't found the silver bullet. So just getting the word out, letting people know we exist. I think people hear national laboratories and they think all of that is closed off to the external community, but these user facilities were built specifically to further research in the country, and so they're actually sort of an external face of the to the community for these national laboratories. But I think people hear national laboratories and think, oh, I can't get in there, and that's not the case.
When
with these
indeed they
facilities.
can. And Simranjeet, I see you shaking your head.
Yes,
Yes. Now you'll be a speaker in a session where graduate students share their experiences in working with a user facility. Give us a preview of what you'll be discussing in that session.
So it's a bit like what Heather said. So graduate students often don't know about what's going on at user facilities and how you can utilize them. And some of it, we're going to be talking specifically with Benjamin. He's going to be talking about how as a graduate student you need to put yourself out there. For myself, I'm going to be talking about like how you overcome failures, and sometimes you get rejections from proposals, and how you need to continue on as a graduate student, keep pushing forward.
And have you yourself used a user facility?
I have. I've used two. So I have used...
You're well ahead of the curve.
Thank you. I've used Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. So there I use what is known as a transmission electron microscope. So we're able to take electron version pictures of our material. And then I've also worked at NASA Ames Research Facility. I'm also a NASA fellow. And so from there, I'm able to get a graduate fellowship from there and spend summers there as well. And so from there, we were able to use different techniques, different ways we're able to make materials. And sometimes we can also collaborate with others as well. I was also part of the Insight project where I was able to give some expertise about the material being able to form under heat.
You're a fabulous ambassador, both of you. Final questions. There are dozens of user facilities out there, both here in the U.S. and also internationally. How does someone begin at the process of finding the right user facility and the right collaboration? Go.
All right, so here at the meeting, there are a bunch of different activities. So I would encourage everyone to go down to User Facility Row. It's row 1100 in the Exhibit Center. There are 16 different booths representing over 100 of the user facilities here. So that's where I would start. You can talk to facility reps one-on-one. There's also flash talks. These facilities are going to give flash talks later on in the week. And so 3-minute talks about their facilities. You could sit down for 1 hour and hear about 100 different facilities. Go to the flash talks, go to the booth, talk to people, and start to find out, what place is right for you in your research.
Simranjeet, final word?
I would say the sky's the limit. You can do user facilities whether it's here on Earth or whether it's up in space, and all you have to do is just Google it.
Fantastic. Thanks to you both for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The MRS there playing a key role in helping scientists get access to essential user facilities around the country. Now to a facility that's providing the materials research needed in everything from energy security to global safety. It's Los Alamos National Lab.
At Los Alamos National Lab, the main mission of the laboratory is to solve some of the toughest security challenges through excellent science. The materials science program at Los Alamos is no different. We provide materials solutions to challenges associated with nuclear deterrence, energy security, and global security. Our primary objective is to support performance prediction of traditional materials and novel materials needed to address some of the toughest national security problems. We are consistently performing experiments as well as developing models to examine novel ways to certify new materials and explore the mechanisms that control performance in some of our traditional materials. You can imagine a main mission of the laboratory calls us to have leadership excellence in energetics. We have an end-to-end capability in energetic materials that includes being able to synthesize novel energetic materials from the molecular level all the way to testing and validating pounds, thousands of pounds of explosive materials here on the Hill.
Over the years, we've developed a unique capability, and we have facilities and firing sites that allow us to do experiments that cannot be done anywhere else in the country. Some of the key challenges in developing new explosives include balancing a property such as safety and performance. So typically when you develop a new explosive, conventional materials have this trend that includes the higher the performing the molecule or explosive is, the more sensitive it is. So balancing those two properties is really critical.
Los Alamos has a very unique suite of static and dynamic platforms that we apply to high explosive science. These range from chemistry labs for making and characterizing new explosive molecules to gas guns and powder guns such as the one you see behind me, all the way up to radiographic tools such as our proton radiography facility or our DART facility where we do integral tests. One of the major areas that we're working in right now is understanding microstructure to performance. So how does processing affect structure, and how can we be more predictive from going from structure at the micron length scale up to performance and safety behaviors at the continuum or bulk level.
At Los Alamos, we have a strong program in predicting the performance of nuclear energy materials, specifically cladding and fuels. Additionally, we have a program to examine novel synthesis methods of nuclear fuels in support of nuclear energy programs through the DOE.
The current state of nuclear fuels has been kind of evolving over the last decade. So after the events of the Fukushima Daiichi disaster, this kind of pivoted towards what's known as accident-tolerant fuels. So a lot of the work that we've done at LANL has focused on that in the past 6 years.
Uranium dioxide is what's currently used now in nuclear reactors, so we're looking at how we can improve the properties so that they are a little bit safer than the current fuels. We're also looking at uranium nitrides and uranium silicide fuels as well, which will give us better thermal properties and also improve the accident tolerance of those fuels.
And then in the last couple of years, it's also pivoted more towards the microreactors and also nuclear thermal propulsion to support deep space missions or missions to Mars.
Los Alamos is lucky enough to be one of the Office of Basic Energy Sciences user facilities for nanotechnologies. We have a robust program through CINT, the Center for Integrated Nanotechnologies, where we have users from around the world come and use capabilities here on the Hill to examine mechanisms that control functionality of nanomaterials and also synthesis of novel nanomaterials.
Although we are working on a variety of nanomaterials ranging from semiconductor to dielectrics, from organic to inorganic compounds, the challenge in terms of synthesis are very similar. For example, one of the challenges is to build the correlation between synthesis, structure, and function. To achieve this unique three-dimensional nanocomposites, we are using laser molecular beam epitaxy to grow this nanostructure. Users worldwide can use this technique to grow a variety of nanostructures with controlled functionality.
One of the things that has been most exciting about working at Los Alamos has been that we have a very robust postdoctoral program. There are over 400 postdocs from all around the world working here at Los Alamos. This is vital to the way we do our science. Many of the current scientists, the permanent scientific staff, were postdocs at some time, and so we see this as incredibly important to our succession planning at Los Alamos. As we look forward to the future, we're being called increasingly to develop novel materials to respond to harsh environments and extreme environments, and that has changed our way of looking at material science. We have an increased focus on manufacturing and synthesis of new materials, and an increased focus on how to certify and qualify those materials.
Joining us now is 2019 MRS President Michael Fitzsimmons. Michael, great to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now, we talked to you at the 2018 MRS Spring Meeting just after you'd become MRS Vice President. At that time, you listed one of your top priorities as increasing the diversity of perspective within the organization. So what steps have you taken so far to do just that?
One of the things that I've learned this year is that it pays to listen to people. So it's okay to have a diverse society, But if you're not listening to those perspectives, it's not doing anybody any good. How do we grab hold of all these diverse perspectives? I'd like the members to think about diversity in a broader sense. It's not just checking off boxes that you have all the demographics correct. It's about including everybody's perspective. I would urge the members in the future to think about, when they cast their vote for board members, to think about trying to include people with other skills that we might be lacking.
Yeah, I can tell you're very passionate about that. Also, you've talked about the organization's ability to create memories for younger members that would encourage them to engage with the organization. So what are some of those engagement opportunities for younger members?
So we have a good example this year. We have a workshop on user facilities, and this is a workshop organized by the student subcommittee. That's one example. We have also joined with the American Physical Society and some other societies an NSF program called the Inclusive Graduate Education Network, IGEN, and that's a program to transition undergraduates into the graduate field in STEM. And so we're going to be working the material science aspect of that.
Now, speaking of memories, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what are some of your fondest memories as MRS president?
Well, so this year we renewed a collaboration with the Sociedad Mexicana de Materiales, which is the Mexican Materials Society for the Cancun meeting, and that was really a great pleasure to renew that collaboration. We've also engaged the Japanese and Korean professional societies to create symposia for the spring 2022 meeting in Hawaii, and to engage the PAC Rim there as well.
So what are some of the challenges on the horizon for future MRS presidents that they'll be needing to tackle?
Right, so in the near term, look, what do the members want? The members want quality meetings that are affordable, and they want a place to publish their research. We have a strategic plan that addresses those issues and engages the members throughout their careers. What we have identified is that we've got about 90 programs that the MRS runs that are not some of which are not well aligned with our strategic plan and the goals of the membership. So we're going to have to make some hard decisions going forward. So that's what happens in the near term. And I think in the long term, getting back to governance, there's an issue with lack of continuity within the board. And so when one board creates or works on a project or a program or an effort, how do you ensure that future boards follow through with that? And that's a fairly serious problem.
That's a challenge.
That is a challenge that we have to.
Okay, quickly, one more question. While your role as president coming to a close, you still have one more year. You're serving as immediate past president. So tell us about that role and how you'll interact with the incoming president and vice president.
Part of the role of the immediate past president is to identify with colleagues a slate of people to put on the ballot for election. And so what we need to do is to find out what competencies do we have on the board, what competencies do we need for the future to push our strategic plan forward, and to identify candidates that can fill those competencies. And so that's the primary duty of the immediate past president.
2019 MRS President Michael Fitzsimmons. Mike, great to see you.
Great, likewise, thank you.
Great insights from the 2019 MRS President as he nears the end of a great year. And now, as things at the fall meeting are just getting started, we wanted to hear from you what you're most looking forward to.
I'm attending MRS for the first time, and in the US also I'm being here for the first time. So I'm very excited to attend all the talks. So my area of expertise is in two-dimensional materials, synthesis and electron microscopy of such materials, and I'm looking forward to listen to all the talks in that particular field.
So I'm most excited about connecting with people in my field of atomic layer deposition and molecular layer deposition. I'm also really excited for seeing some exhibits on new materials characterization equipment, which I can apply to my research. Other meetings I've been to are more focused, but I think the broad scope will allow me to develop my research techniques, as well as expand applications of my current research to other electrical devices.
We are here to trying to learn a lot and also share our knowledge.
We want also to learn new knowledge and insights about the recent findings in materials so we can implement it in our research at the University of Puerto Rico.
So we come from the Max Planck Institute in Germany, in Stuttgart, and we're very looking forward to catching up with colleagues and meeting some old friends and new friends here.
This is my first time in the States, also in a conference as a new PhD student, and I'm really excited to experience everything, meeting people, learning new stuff, interacting with people.
I'm at MRS for the first time. I'll be making presentation, and I'm looking for postdoc opportunity and other job opportunities.
Actually just started as a professor after many years in industry, so it's a sort of a good occasion to get an overview of my field.
As a graduate student, I moved to industry, so I'm here to see how the industry-academia connection happens at MRS, and that is what I'm mostly looking for. And new science is always good to hear about and talk about. That's what MRS is all about, I think, every year.
That's it for our first day here at the 2019 MRS Fall Meeting and Exhibit. And as attendees gear up for what will be an exciting week in the vibrant field of materials research, we also have a lot more exciting material to share with you. Tomorrow we discuss sustainability, responsive and adaptive materials, as well as sit down with 2 MRS postdoctoral awards winners. Until then, make sure you know how to watch the show, whether it's in your hotel, at the convention center, or online. We have you covered, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks to the 2019 MRS Fall Meeting Chairs. This was an enormous task, over 2 years to shape a meeting of this magnitude. Also thanks to symposium organizers, staff, and other volunteers who contributed their time and talents to make this another successful MRS meeting.
The MRS Meeting app is the best way to stay on top of all the exciting activities during this busy week. Personalize your schedule, search the meeting, and participate in live polling during select sessions and events. The MRS Meeting app is accessible from your laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Log on today.
Connect with fellow meeting attendees this week via social media. Follow the official hashtag F19MRS on Twitter, Facebook, and now on Instagram at materials_MRS. Join the conversation and share your fall meeting stories, photos, videos, and more.
Do you have an announcement about yourself or a colleague that you'd like to share with MRS and the materials community? We'll be publishing a selection of these in upcoming issues of MRS Bulletin. Announcements could include important awards, research recognition, a recent accomplishment, a significant move, and more. Send your news to bulletin@mrs.org. Get the information you want from MRS delivered directly to your inbox. Update your email preferences for MRS newsletters and alerts through Tuesday at the MRS opt-in booth located in the Hines Level 2 registration corridor, and you'll also receive a free MRS notebook while supplies last. Visit the Public Outreach Center, open 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. through Thursday in the Hub, Hall D. Learn about our efforts to bring the science of materials out of the lab and to the general public, and find out how you can participate.
Your opinion matters. Please take a minute during this very busy week to answer 3 quick questions about the 2019 MRS Fall Meeting. Just scan the QR code located on any of the symposium session signs. The poll closes Friday evening.